It also sounds like if the radio industry wants to survive, it needs to like completely do an like clean out all its creepy men by the sounds of it. Like seriously, have you? There's this Instagram something about the glass ceiling. Have you been following this?
No, haven't.
Obviously, Mediaworks is doing a some sort of internal investigation into sexual assault and harassment within its brands, and then this Instagram has started. I think it's through the glass ceiling, something like that. And it's people are sharing their stories anonymously of sexual harassment in the radio industry and the music industry.
Got it. Beneath the glass ceiling.
Maybe it's that.
Yeah, let me bring it up so other people can see it if they're watching. Here we go. Let me do this. Beneath the glass ceiling. Yeah, real life experiences working beneath the glass ceiling of Aotearoa's music industry.
Yeah. And those stories are harrowing. And it sounds like the music industry, I don't know how far it extends. Definitely the media industry needs a reckoning with gender equality, with women being able to feel safe in the workplace. Coming back to that thing of like, not feeling lucky to have a job working in the music industry, but being like, no, actually, we're going to make you safe and pay you what you deserve. And, you know, you're going to work for us and give us your best. And we're going to make this a great place for you to work. The end. So anyway, it seems like the whole industry needs a little clean out.
I've got some thoughts for you. I'd like your take on this, because you've just sparked something off for me, which could turn into another hour conversation, which I promise it won't, because I'm interested about what you're saying. For a couple of reasons. I know, and obviously I can't mention names, but I know that there are some people, radio announcers through Mediaworks. Let me take a couple of things first of all. First of all, the what did you think was going to happen award goes to Mediaworks because of the misogynistic on-air content they've been setting up at places like The Rock for such a long time. Is anyone really surprised? I mean, I'm not saying it's okay, obviously, but is anyone really surprised that someone from that radio station has come out for being someone who's, you know, been a complete prick and inappropriate around women? That's been what they've been doing on air for 30 fucking years. What do they think is happening behind the scenes?
I don't think it's just that radio station.
No, I know, because I said I know someone else there, and I know that he's basically said, and I'm not saying who it is, if he goes down, he's going to take the whole lot down with him. Because,
good, take them all out. Nobody wants you.
But this is the third point that I want to make to you, and I really would love your thoughts around this. I remember it happened with Paul Henry, I think, when he was on TVNZ. Who knows? TVNZ, TV3, back to TVNZ, back. Who knows? But the management of these places set up these people to be these characters. And then when those characters either fall over, go too far, or let's say at the moment what we're going through in a change of society, you know, the whole Me Too movement, that where we're moving, all of a sudden become passé and acceptable yesterday. All of a sudden it's the Paul Henrys of this world, or it's the radio host X of this world. And I'm not talking about everyone's broken any laws or anything, but, you know, the character that was set up and encouraged and paid to be that by the management is then thrown out the door. And that's why this one particular person I know about is like, I'm going to take you all down with me, because the question of scapegoating comes in there as well. Let me be really clear. I'm not advocating for any of these people who have done it. I've never been involved in it in the radio industry. I've seen it a little bit maybe, but it's not been my bag. But all I'm going is there's this clean out that needs to happen. I agree 100%. But what I hope doesn't happen is those who enabled the characters that are now being cleaned out, paid them to be those characters, and now are going, unacceptable, get off scot-free.
Yeah. No, I hope it goes all the way to the top as well. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think it will. I wish it did. Like, if there could be some sort of investigation which didn't just look at the people who were seen, but the people who were unseen, and as you say, the enablers or the bosses or whatever. Like, I hope that happens. But I also don't think it's a matter of like, oh, now the Me Too movement is here, and so now these people are put on notice. Like, that society has somehow changed and what was okay is no longer okay. I think these things were never okay. I think it was just that women were never empowered enough to speak out about what was not okay. It wasn't that it was okay then and now it's not okay. No, it was never okay. It was just that it wasn't safe enough. There was no safe space for people to speak out and say, hey, you know what, I was sexually harassed at work. Hey, you know what, you can't make jokes like that in front of me. Like, it's inappropriate. So yeah, I hope that, I mean, I don't know what will happen, but I am encouraged at least that there are signs of people speaking out about what is really happening. I mean, I remember working with someone once, I won't say where or who, but who would make sexist jokes all the time, like just jokes that would make you feel deeply uncomfortable. And I would always call him out, and then I would get called out for calling him out. Like, oh, take a joke, or, you know, like, why can't you just relax, or we're just joking around or whatever. And it's like, no, like, you can't be like that. And it's only, I guess, as I've gotten older and more like confident in myself and my own role in my workplace, that I'm like, I would consistently call that out, because it's not okay. But if you think about like young women coming into the industry, or women who have like, you know, bosses who are wielding power and making it very clear that their roles and their positions depend on them adhering to this like cultural norm, then of course it's going to be difficult for them to say anything, because your job's at stake, you know. Anyway,
I'm interested in the idea of it never being okay. Because, and let me make this very clear to anyone who's listening or watching this, I agree with you, right? Mm-hmm. Some filthy joke about women in front of women, or about a woman to that woman, never has been okay.
Or to anyone.
Or to anyone. But that's one of the things I was going to say is it kind of also depends what we're talking about, because there has definitely been a shift where things have been deemed acceptable. Let's not talk about the sexist thing. Let's talk about an inappropriate joke or swearing words or something. You know, people that have been called out on things that they did 20 years ago, because in that society, and I'm not saying you would say it's okay or I would say it's okay, but for some reason in that workspace it's deemed okay, or in society it's deemed okay. And it just makes me think, and I wrote it down, who makes it okay? And if it was never okay, why did it happen? So who or what is the thing that makes that joke that comedian told in 1999 okay, who now, and I'm not actually talking about Kevin Hart, but who now gets cancelled from hosting the Oscars because that was never okay. But in the moment it was okay, but it was never okay. And how do we traverse that story?
I see what you're saying. I think, like, I'm sure there must be things that I've said or whatever, tweeted or whatever, that are like inappropriate or whatever, but when you know better, you do better, and you apologize and you say, I got it wrong and I'm going to do better. And that's all you can do. You can't go back and change the past. But yeah, I think the comedian issue is a whole separate thing. And I was listening to a podcast about exactly this, Louis Theroux, with some British comedian, very famous, whose name I don't know. But anyway, talking about, like, is it safe to be a comedian anymore because the things that you say can be construed, or you know, what was funny is no longer funny, and that's a whole world I don't even know how to begin to traverse.
But that's a part of this conversation around it was never okay, because when we've tangented, we've performed a tangent slightly away from, for example, sexual harassment, because there's another part of society today which says that joke was never okay, or that comment was never okay, or, you know, that whatever was never okay. And following the same idea, if it was never okay, why did it happen? And why was it acceptable to a huge portion of society then? And so I have this thing where, and it might sound a little bit kind of okay boomer and a bit sort of redneck, but it's like I kind of refuse to be judged for societal things I did yesterday based on today's standards. You know, like, I'm not talking about, for example, if it's a criminal activity or a fireable offence, I'm not talking about that. But if I said or did something, you know, in 1995, and this is never going to affect me, because
how would you feel if you found out that the thing you said or did in 1995 made the people around you deeply uncomfortable, but they didn't feel like it was okay to say anything? Does that make it okay? Because
no, because I'm not actually saying it's okay. But what I'm saying is, if someone comes out today and says, and it's never going to happen to me because this is what I do, you know, but that says, you can't do this today, Pat, because the standards of society, whether they're right or wrong, whether I agree or disagree with them, say that this is unacceptable, right? And you did it 25 years ago, so I'm afraid you're done for today. I think that connection is, and I was talking just the other day to someone about this on the podcast, actually, about, you know, there are the comedians, but then there are other comedians who haven't been sort of piled on. Now, look at Eddie Murphy is about to come and do some more stand-up. And if you watch Delirious, one of the greatest ever stand-up routines there's been, what he says about the gay community and that, by today's standards, are horrific. Like, they are horrific based on today's standards. Does that mean that that piece of art is actually a piece of trash and should never be seen again? Does that mean he should be cancelled today based on the comedy of that era? All I guess I'm saying is, I don't think it's as black and white as what a lot of people are portraying. Let me put it that way, that there is more nuance to it. And I think what I struggle with is when people make absolute decisions and absolute positions based on an area of life, to me, that there feels like there's still a lot of nuance to have around.
Yeah. I think it all comes down to when you know better, you do better, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, that's great. I like that.
I also hope that there is a shift in the media industry in this country to not give platforms to people who are, their sole reason is to be offensive, and their sole, you know, that their message is so full of like hatred and division. We don't need that. We don't need that for ratings. That's not what makes good television or good radio anymore. Maybe not ever, but I just, yeah. I don't know. Was it Don Brash who was on some radio, some talkback radio? I think I missed this story, but he was filling in for a radio host, and he said some like horrendous, he let some horrendously racist things go to air. Was it him or was it someone else?
No, it wasn't Don Brash. What was the former mayor of Auckland?
Oh, John Banks.
John Banks.
I mean, that sort of thing should never have been allowed to, you know, like, why would you even have someone on air in the first place?
I agree.
That wouldn't call that out,
yeah.
You know, like, that is not the country that we live in.
I agree.
And I think we are, in the media, our job is to reflect society, and that is not reflecting society, you know? Or maybe it is. Maybe it is, and that's a whole other problem in itself.
I hear what you're saying, and I accept what you're saying. My only difficulty with it is I still kind of have this innate belief, and maybe it's my naivete, I'll accept that, is that the best thing against bad speech is good speech. And you mentioned Don Brash. I remember when Don Brash came out and said a whole lot of horrifically racial things about, you know, the treaty or whatever. I had him on a podcast not long after that, and I got conversing with him, and I asked him to explain to me what, you know, kawanatanga and rangatiratanga was, and these things that are within the treaty document, and he couldn't explain them to me. And so I said to him, but if you're going to make these stands and explain to us what the treaty says, you don't even know what these key... You can't even tell me what these key things are. How are we going to take your opinion as anything serious?
Yeah.
And he cancelled an appearance the next day to talk about the treaty. I always take credit for that. I don't know if it's true or not, but that to me was a period where good speech kind of was important. We weren't talking about platforming back then. This was either 2008 or 2011. I can't remember which it was. But it negates it. And you're talking about not having those on. I mean, we talked about Paula Penfold earlier today. Her documentary on Billy TK is unbelievable. And he's exactly the kind of guy that you wouldn't quote unquote platform for his views. But her platforming him, I think, did a huge amount of positive things to shut his argument down. So I hear what you're saying, but I guess, again, to me, it feels like I guess I struggle with the black and white lines, that it depends on the situation and it depends on the approach. If you're doing it just for ratings, I agree with you. If you're doing it because, you know, you want some good speech, some light in the darkness, then, you know, maybe there's a reason.